afternoon, everyone. I promise I won't be as long. So I am Dr. Tiffany Taft. Actually, you see Gouch on the presentation slide. I recently got married. So officially now, Dr. Gouch. I am the Nashville ambassador and the Tennessee consultant for Count the Kicks. What does that mean? I will be traveling throughout the state to bring education and awareness about this app. So I invite all of you, even if you think it's not applicable to you, I'm sure you know someone, whether you work with that person or that person's in your family, that could benefit from use of this app. So again, we've heard lots of statistics from the commissioner to my fellow panelists here, so I won't go deep dive. And we all know that there is a national tragedy happening within the birth space. So this slide tells us 177 pregnancies, according to the CDC, are experiencing stillbirths. And so part of our goal with Count the Kicks is to reduce that ratio. And I can proudly say that since over the last 15 years, the parent organization, which is Healthy Birthday, Inc., has been able to reduce 30% across the board through the use of this campaign. And it really doesn't matter what state we find ourselves in. What I heard this morning is Tennessee's grade is a D, and it's passing, but we don't want to be like in school and just pass. We want to excel. These are lives, and we want to hear everyone's story. But any life loss where it was possibly preventable is a loss that we should not be satisfied with a score of just passing. All right, so stillbirth data in Tennessee. 539 babies per year are being lost in Tennessee. So we feel through Count the Kicks, a lot of this can be prevented. This is having conversations at the doctor's office. This is having conversations around your tables at home. This is having conversations from doulas and midwives and OBs and care providers that actually take the time to listen to the patients, the family members, whoever they may be in relationship to you. This is preventable. Yes, there are medical situations in which it may not be preventable, but a lot of it is we die from lack of knowledge. We don't have the education we need or understand the information in front of us. And so a goal of mine as I go through the state would be to meet the people where they are. No matter who the audience is, I don't want to talk over or under to anyone. But I want to make sure that we all understand the basic foundations of what this app can do. 6.65 stillbirth per 1,000 births in the state of Tennessee, and 172 babies could be potentially saved with the use of this, through the use of this app. Stillbirth and severe maternal morbidity. So what we do know is this goes across the spectrum, right? 4 to 5 times, women who experience stillbirths are 4 to 5 more times likely to die and 7 times more likely to experience this severe maternal morbidity outcome. And so what does this mean? This can happen post-delivery up to 1 year. So while when we go in to have the baby, everyone is focused on the moment, and the baby arrives. And after the baby gets here, there are a lot of things happening, whether it's a vaginal delivery or that birth happens in an OR. There's a lot of care given to the mother. As a doula in community and as a prison doula, I've gotten to see both sides of it. And so the mothers that have surgical births, so the C-sections in the OR, there's a lot more. Raise your hand if you've attended a birth. Okay, so without being graphic, it can look like a crime scene, right? There's a lot of attention given to the mother. Then what happens when the mom is taken to the postpartum side for recovery? There's a lot of attention given in those first hours after delivery. She makes it home. Then what happens? Oh, how's the baby? The baby's so cute. Nobody ever asks about mom. Nobody checks in on mom. The instructions given to mom when you go home are very high level, not specific enough. And so I invite you again, when you're giving instructions for your patients, when you're sending them home, be detailed. Don't just give them that sheet of paper, roll them in the wheelchair and send them on, put them on in the car and send them home. There's a lot more that's still going to happen once she gets home. Things that she needs to recognize that's going on with her body. These are things that can help prevent the mortality and the maternal morbidity rates. So Count the Kicks is evidence-based. It is an app, and it has been widely published in AJOC and BJOC. So we are using these, the app is using birth outcomes to help improve the education. Healthy Birthday Inc. was in partnership with A1, who also has a table here, and did a lot of research and developed a practice brief which addresses the decrease in fetal movement and ways in which you can help participate and educate your patients on these fetal movements and what to watch out for. They also provide resources. So if you are able to scan the QR code there, it gives you ways to sign up for the additional training, but also to see what the practice briefs found in the outcomes. So what does ACOG say? Again, it is an evidence-based app. It brings maternal awareness of fetal movement. ACOG acknowledges the clinical significance of decreased fetal movement as a potential sign of fetal compromise. They encourage pregnant individuals to report any subjective decrease in fetal movement to their healthcare providers. Usually they'll say, I haven't felt my baby, or the movements are slow. There's not any consistent evidence, right? And we all know that doctors like evidence, right? So the one thing that this app does, it tracks, and it tracks consistently. And you're able to print out a report, or mom's able to print out a report or show it on her phone when she goes for the doctor visit, in order to show, I've been counting kicks, I've been tracking movement, I've noticed a decrease or an increase, because too much movement is also not a good thing. All right, so no universal standard for Count the Kicks. This simply means we're not telling you how many that you need to get in a set amount of time. That is totally independent on each individual mother's experience, right? So the guideline, if you had to have a guideline, is kick counting within a 2-hour time frame. The one thing that we want to make sure is that you're doing it around the same time every day. And this is typically recommended that you start doing the kick counting in the 3rd trimester. If you happen to find yourself pregnant with multiples, the app does track for twins, but over any multiples over the twins, it gets a bit more challenging to track all those kicks. But if 1 or 2 of the babies, if you have more than 2, 1 or 2 are in trouble, chances are the others are also. All right, when to use fetal movement monitoring. ACOG highlights that monitoring fetal movements can be particularly beneficial in pregnancies of high risk for complications, any growth restrictions, hypertension, and diabetes. You can also recommend kick counting for as early as 26 weeks. And again, this would be in those that are carrying multiples or that are at these higher risk indicators, as mentioned, hypertension, diabetes, and the growth restrictions. The app can be downloaded on an iOS or an Android phone. It is currently in 20+ languages. I have information here, and the information that you will get that you can order, the state of Tennessee has access to, it's free, comes in multiple languages. The documents I have here today are only in English and Spanish, but you can probably find on the online resources the language of your choice, depending on what community you're representing. We recommend that you set a daily reminder for counting the kicks. Will show up in terms of the consistency of the kicks and the history. So when you go to talk to these medical providers, you can say, every day around this time, this is when I counted the kicks and these are the numbers, so they can see a trend. Download the history, share that with your family members, your providers, and friends. You can share it via text or email. Take a notepad with you, because when you're at your doctor's appointment, there's a lot of information flying around, and you may even forget to even talk about these kicks you've been counting, and maybe you've noticed a change and you just completely forget to mention it until you get back home and you're like, oh my God, the baby's not moving, moving too slow, moving too fast, and I forgot to say something. So write down your notes prior to going. New features have been developed. There's a contraction timer and OCR and badges that are kind of like cheerleading, like cheering you on for achieving a certain level, right? And you can find your resources, like community resources that we've talked about. So I'm interested in talking to Earth and maybe Team Birth as well, as to how maybe this potentially could be a collaborative effort for resources in the back end for Count the Kicks. But within Count the Kicks, community resources like myself, doulas, mental health providers, could list yourself where the persons can find you by zip code as a community resource available to them. And there's a disclaimer there to say we do not share or sell app user information. There is an Ask Anna AI assistant now within this app. It is an evidence-based. It's been peer-reviewed responses that come out from, depending on the question that's asked within the app. So you don't have to worry about random Google is your friend and just medical advice from Dr. Google. These are evidence-based responses. And so app users can create their questions if they have something specific about their fetal movement that they're concerned about. So what is the goal? The goal is to save more lives. This is a statewide implementation. So again, I invite you to connect with me, please, so that I can come and speak to your organizations and or your families to help educate and push more awareness around the app use. And again, the Tennessee state, the entire state, you have access to brochures, app cards, posters. But this is a manual way for mom to count. It goes through numbers 1 through 10 on here, and she would simply move this black counter here as she's counting the kicks. She would need a separate timer to count the kicks, but then she could write it down, and then that could be used to take into the doctor's visit. And so this came in really handy when I was doing prison birth work, because of course they had very little access, we'll say, to, they did have phones, but they had very little access to devices in which they could count their kicks. So we were able to provide this during their childbirth education classes as a manual way for them to track their baby's counts. And I think that's it.